Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for November 30th through December 6th. This week I read 1 book, I watched 3 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. This is obviously not my normal setup. I'm right next to the ocean. In fact, if you hear the waves at any point, it's because they are literally lapping like 10 feet from me. I'll show you a little bit of footage from my desk area. The fog is going in and out right now, so sometimes you can see that we're kind of in an inlet and you can see trees on the other side, and sometimes you just can't. This video is also going up a little bit later than usual because we're in a different location, so I needed to wait a little bit to film so that I could have the room to myself to do that. And while I was waiting around for that opportunity, I was reading books for the Queer Lit Readathon, so I'm very excited about that. But we're not here to talk about the Queer Lit Readathon, we're here to talk about what I read, watched, and listened to this week, so let's go over it. The first thing is Out of Salem. This is a book that concerns zombies and werewolves, and sometimes other mythological creatures. This is set in the 1990s in, I believe, Oregon State, specifically Salem, Oregon, not Salem, Massachusetts, as you might have guessed. And we have 2 point of view characters. One of them is Z, and Z has recently become a zombie, which has its own political situations about it because zombies are really not looked highly upon. In fact, necromancy is just not a thing that the society really agrees with, but the person who cast a spell that made them into a zombie is now currently deceased, so there's not much they can do about it besides wait until nobody else wants to take care of Z as a zombie, and then they will be set on fire, which is not great. Our other point of view character is a werewolf, and werewolves are also looked down upon by the society. However, nobody knows that she's a werewolf except for her mother, and then eventually more characters in this book. There were passages in this book that I swear apply to America in 2025. One particularly talking about how people don't deserve due process if they're monsters, and I'm just like, wow. This one was definitely interesting, although I didn't altogether understand the magic system, which got stronger and stronger as the book went on, and then I don't really know how to feel about the ending, so if you've read this, please let me know about your thoughts. On to what I watched this week, the first show being the first couple of episodes of Blackadder. This is a series I've watched before, but it's been absolutely years, and truth be told, I really only remember the final season, I believe it was, which is set during one of the World Wars, and Hugh Laurie is in it. But this goes back to where the character gets the name of Blackadder and just the bumbling ridiculousness of Rowan Atkinson being great. Speaking of going back to the beginning, I also watched the first 4 episodes of the first season of Silent Witness, which, if you've been here for a while, you know that I've watched 27 seasons of this show in the past few months. It turns out my aunt and uncle were actually interested in watching the show because I talked about it before. They were like, oh yeah, we started this show, it's great so far, and they go in to put on the next episode, and I'm like, you're currently watching the 28th season, you need to go back to the beginning. So they did. And they were like, oh yeah, this looks a lot older. I'm like, yeah, this is 1996. However, the 28th season of Silent Witness is currently on BritBox now, completed. I've been waiting because it's been updating week by week and there's 10 episodes, so I had to wait 10 weeks for all of the episodes to be available. So I did watch the first couple of episodes of the 28th series as well. It was really nice and actually kind of fun to go from the first series to the 28th series because absolutely everything has changed. It's still a show about pathology and forensics, but all of the characters are different, the location is different, the opening theme tune was completely different. So it was really fun to go back to these characters, see what they're up to, and see some new characters that have come into the office, which is great. I also watched the entire limited series of Magpie Murders. This is based on a book, which is the first in its own series, the Susan Ryland series, and I actually read this book last month and really enjoyed it, and then found out they had made a limited series of this book, so I decided to watch that, and I watched it basically all in one go, the first 4 episodes one night, the last 2 episodes the next night. This one is a book within a book situation because you start out with a main character who is a book editor, and she's like, let me tell you about this book that has completely ruined my life. And then you go into reading about 80% of this mystery novel, and then she's like, and then after that, I don't have the last few pages, so I have no idea how this book ends. So not only are you trying to solve the mystery of the book within the book, you're trying to solve the mystery that is in the book you're reading. Confusing, I know, but if you think about it, you'll figure it out. I really enjoyed how the show was adapted because it's alluded to in the book itself that the writer who is writing the book that's within the book often took people from his own life and put them as characters in the book, and in the TV show the same characters play the characters that are inside and outside of the book. which was just so much fun. Also, this is playing with different time periods because the book within the book is set in the 1940s, and then the book that we are reading is set in the late 2010s or early 2020s. Needless to say, I had a very fun time. On to my movies, the first one being something I watched with my aunt and uncle, and that's Moving On. This is about this woman who is going to the funeral of her best friend, and when she gets there, she has some very choice words for her best friend's husband, because as it turns out, 40 years ago, he took advantage of her and she's never been able to say anything because she didn't want to do anything that would negatively impact her best friend. But now that her best friend is gone, she's decided she wants to get rid of him. So it's a whole weekend situation where she is going on and off whether or not that's going to happen, and then talking to their other mutual best friend about this situation and her trying to talk her out of it, and then she also has her own feelings about this whole situation. This was brilliantly done. Obviously it has some very dark subject matter, but I ended up highly enjoying it. The movie that we watched here last night was Nonnas. This is based on a true story, and it stars Vince Vaughn, and he has inherited some money because his mother recently passed, and he's decided to use that money to open his own restaurant that is staffed by Nonnas, Italian grandmothers making Italian food. However, restaurants are notoriously difficult to open, run, and keep open, so he has hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, but it's quite a touching story. I very much enjoyed it. As for the books I listened to this week, the first one is What Moves the Dead. This one is by T. Kingfisher, and I highly enjoyed it. It's also the start to a series, so I'll probably have to read the rest of the series at some point. I've never read The Fall of the House of Usher, but I'm pretty sure that this must be related to it, just because of the location of this also being the House of Usher, so I can only assume, based on that and the fact that this is a fairly gothic novel and some creepy things happen, it's probably either an adaptation or it's just drawing heavily from that story that I haven't read, so I don't know. Also, there is a character in this who it's alluded to that she is actually the aunt to Beatrix Potter, and I very much enjoyed seeing that connection. The protagonist in this one is a character who is a soldier, and they are going to visit their friends because one of them is not doing so well. She's quite ill, and her brother is pretty sure that she is going to die soon, so she writes a letter saying, hey, you should probably visit me while I'm still alive. And there's immediately weird things happening in the house, and this book is short enough that I don't think I want to tell you anything more than that, because you're going to figure out what's going on very quickly, and it's very gross and very weird, and it makes you understand that there's more than one meaning to the title. And that's all I'm going to tell you. Finally, the other book that I listed this week is the most thematically relevant for exactly where I'm sitting right now, it feels like, because that's Rebecca. This is from the 1930s, and we all know that classics really aren't my thing because of the vernacular. However, the vernacular in this one was pretty decent. Also, if I'm listening to something as opposed to reading something with an older vernacular, way easier for me. And the character in this tends to actually go on these little bits of daydreams, which really gives you a lot of background and contextual information about her interior life. The protagonist in this one, actually, we don't ever know her given name. Eventually, we call her Mrs. De Winter because she does end up marrying this guy, and it turns out she is the second Mrs. De Winter. The titular character in this one is the first Mrs. De Winter, who died by drowning a while ago, and she feels constantly in the shadow of this woman she never met because the staff all knew the previous Mrs. De Winter. She thinks that her husband is still in love with the previous Mrs. De Winter, and it's a lot to live up to, but also the story gets darker from there. If you're like me from a week ago and you've never read this before, I'm going to leave it at that because I'm not going to give anything away, but this definitely gets dark and interesting and creepy, and I very much enjoyed the atmosphere of it. Also, I'm mentioning that it's set next to the ocean because it really is. She lives in this big manor called Manderley, and one of the wings, you can hear the ocean from that wing, and I can hear the ocean because it's right there. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I'll see you very soon. Bye! I've got reading for the Queerly Readathon to do.